All right, good evening and welcome to my school board meeting. It's Monday, March 22nd, 2021, 6 o'clock. We're in the Susan Tully Library Board in the 1887 building. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Ask Mr. Tully to call roll, please.
Mrs. Fisher.
Here.
Mr. Gayhart.
Here.
Mrs. Ingersoll.
Here.
Mr. Martell.
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Here.
Mrs. Ray.
Here.
Mr. Scarrow.
Here.
All right, I'd like to note that Ms. Grakowski and Mr. Reed are helping with the fundraiser this evening for the memorial.
Well, we do have a quorum. We will continue. We will note that this meeting has been noticed for state statutes. Guessing there's no community participation. Unless you have something to read in.
I do not.
Okay. Dispense with reading that and go to the middle school student presentation.
Turn it over to Mr. McBurney to introduce the middle school.
Good evening, everyone. Ryan McBurney, principal at Elkhorn Area Middle School. I'm happy to bring to you tonight one of the really cool things that our students are involved in. As they move throughout the middle school, one of our overarching goals is really to have students, take more leadership roles and become more self-driven in what they're doing. And one of our great examples of that is our Kickstart Your Week program, which serves as our weekly announcements that come out on a Monday. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Sorensen and his crew, and they've got a little clip to show you at the end as well. Take it away, Max.
Hey, everybody. Thanks again for having us tonight. Like Mr. McBurney said, I'm the library media specialist over at the middle school here in Elkhorn. And today I've actually brought a couple students, or I've invited a couple students onto the meeting here to help talk about the experience of the news broadcasts that we put out every week. Actually, the way that I was planning on doing it was, before we talk about it, I'd like to just show like a showcase video, just to kind of give all of you an idea of what the broadcast is like. So you have something to reference as the kids talk about it and as I talk about it a little bit. So if that's possible, if we could play that'd be great.
All right, I'll go ahead and pull that up.
Hi. Hello. Hey.
Hello.
Hey. Welcome back to Kickstart. Hope y'all enjoy. Fun facts about February. This week's lunch menu. On Monday, we have rotini with sweet sauce. On Tuesday, it's breakfast sandwich. And on Wednesday, it's corn dog on a stick. Thursday, it is macaroni and cheese. I have eggs, and this is the whole week dress up days. Monday is pajama day. Hi, it's Ella Liz. Elkhorn Area Middle School will be having an essentials drive from now until January 22nd.
Jokes on the way. I'm Kim and I'm Malaysian. How do pickles enjoy day out? I don't know. They relish it. Ha 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 ha.
Hey, it's weather time again. On Monday, it's going to be a high of 3 and a whopping -11 that night.
Hi, I'm Kayla.
Hi, I'm Lily.
Hi, I'm Emily.
And today we're going to be interviewing Mr. Hammond.
When you were a kid, what did you want to be?
When I was really little, like every little boy, I wanted to play professional football.
Hello, Mr. A here. And did you know that during the presidency of Ronald Reagan, Jelly Belly beans were served in the Oval Office and on Air Force One?
Hawaii or Florida, just somewhere warm, just because you like warm, then go to Florida or Hawaii. If you like cold, then go to somewhere cold.
That's good advice. It's cute. That is cute.
Yeah, so that's just sort of the general idea of what a weekly Kickstart Your Week looks like. Obviously, the clips go more in depth, for every week that we actually put out, but that's just sort of a general idea of how it flows and the vibe for the program. And I appreciate you guys taking a couple minutes to watch that. So as we go here, before we start, I'd like to introduce a couple students who are a big part of this program and make it go smoothly every week. There's supposed to be 3 of them on here right now. There's only 2. So to start, I want to introduce Carter Jorgalis and Josie Sensabaugh. Both of them are 8th graders at the middle school. And both of them have been working on Kickstart now for quite some time, I think several years. And basically what they're going to do is they're just going to talk about their experience and kind of highlight some things that they do for the program. So we'll start off with Carter. Carter, if you want to pop on the mic here and kind of talk about what you do and Kickstart.
Good afternoon, school billboard. Today we'll be talking about Kickstart Your Week. Kickstart Your Week is a fun way to tell the school about important information about the week. Some examples of segments include lunch menu, fun facts, weather, and other fun ideas. Anyone can record for Kickstart Your Week. They just need to come down to the LMC on their free time to record whatever they'd like, as long as it isn't appropriate.
Awesome. Thanks, Carter.
Yep.
Next, I'd like to introduce Josie Sensabaugh. Josie, why don't you tell everybody about your experience?
Hi, my name is Josie, and I help with Kickstart Your Week every week. Every week, I help with the script writing of segments and with the recording of the segments. For the script writing, we get together during study hall and we do the research for the segments. We then write the script down on a piece of paper so we can learn what to say. For the recording, we always make sure the battery is charged on the camera, the microphone is turned on, and that the people being recorded are centered on the screen. In addition, we delete any of the bad takes on the SD cards, so the editing of the clips goes much smoother.
Awesome. Thank you, Josie. Appreciate that. Like I was saying, our other guest unfortunately couldn't make it at the moment. Her name is Nidian, and her role with the whole program is she is the editor. So like Josie was talking about, after they shoot and after they record, we take the SD card and we give it to Nidian, and then Nidian takes the footage and brings it into iMovie on one of the computers, and she edits it and she adds sound and adjusts the sound volumes and puts different backgrounds behind the images, so it turns out similar to what you saw in that little showcase that we showed for you guys. And then before we open up for conversation, I just want to talk about sort of my personal goals and our school goals for the program from an educator standpoint. So when starting this program 4 years ago, when I got to the district, one of the main goals was to increase group work for students. And like the students mentioned earlier, the entire program that we create every week is essentially a collaboration. So using our makerspace in our middle school library and the other technologies we have, we're able to shoot this program with the students working together. And it's even more collaborative when we don't have all the COVID restrictions, obviously, in place. Secondly, the Kickstart program is just a really, really good way to introduce the students to some real world technologies. A lot of the programs that we use, like iMovie, Photoshop, and some of the tools like the Rode microphones and the Canon T7i cameras. Those are all tools that are used, by real world professionals in the field, as they're making their products. In addition, one of the more important things, and this is sort of developed over time, is just the effectiveness of a community outreach. Like Mr. McBurney was talking about, we use the Kickstart as our announcements. And, this is a good way for us to announce events, announce fundraisers, different activities for our school and local communities. And then lastly, it's just a ton of fun, and it's a unique opportunity for our students to be a part of something, to create something, they call their own, and something that they can take ownership in. So, and hopefully take it on to the high school level, and in a perfect world, after high school. So, with that being said, if you guys have any questions or any comments, we'd love to hear them.
Is this something you could only get in-house? These Kickstart?
No, actually. So we have a YouTube channel. So all of our videos are on there. So I mean, if you'd like to, if you want to go back and check a couple out, that'd be great. But every week we drop a new video every Monday, and that's pushed out in the announcements, and it's they're out there for people to watch as they please. I've actually had a couple people from around the nation stumble across our videos and ask how we go about doing it, ask the student involvement, and just sort of ask us about the process, so they can try and do something similar with their school.
I found it. I can look at it.
All right, any other questions? All right, well, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, have a good evening. Good job, Carter and Josie. Thank you.
Next is the approval of our minutes. We have the minutes from March 8th. Questions or comments? Otherwise, looking for a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the minutes for the March 8th, 2021 regular session school board meeting as presented.
Is there a second? I'll second. So moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the March 8th, 2021 as presented. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Gaver.
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll.
Yes.
Mr. Martell.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mrs. Ray.
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow.
Yes.
Motion carried.
I can tell Mr. Martell is going to get more motions now that there's no. If you're ever wondering, Paul, like, hey, I swore I did like 5 motions. It was just they're always lagging behind.
We'll all sit on our hands for this financial report.
What do you got for us tonight, Mr. True?
The general other funds this evening cover checks number 142,474 through 142,606, wire checks number 875 through 882, ACH checks number 312 through 331, station wire numbers 874, debt service wire numbers 837 through 841, and one voided check number 142. 481, the combined amount of $3,948,137.90. And you'll notice that most of the financial activity relates to our debt service payments. We pay our debt twice a year. April's principal and interest, and then October is just the interest payment. And then a copy of the treasurer's report for the month of February is also included.
I just want to say, I love some of these companies' names, like Brain Popcorn.
Right.
You know,
Creative.
it's like, these are really cute, really creative.
Bill, I had a couple of questions. I know you put on the probable voucher question memo about Capstone, and that it's a subscription service, but what is it? Like, I know it's a subscription service, but what is it? What is Capstone?
I'm drawing a blank.
It sounds familiar. I know we've had it before.
Let's see. Amy, can you help me
I know
out?
I'm looking at the Chevys website and Jackson subscriptions, but I'm drawing a blank as well. Sometimes Capstone can be like the company name and it's not telling us exactly what the tool is.
Well, Capstone Homes will engage readers by creating the right content for the right purpose for the right kid.
Yeah, I can tell you it is a library type subscription, which is available for elementary students.
Okay.
And it's funded through our common school fund, so it has to originate kind of through the elementaries.
Right.
So,
Okay.
So I think maybe it picks out like your level.
I'm sure it would probably be an electronic subscription to a
Yeah.
library for our students. And I know,
Right.
especially this year, not knowing what we were facing, we made sure that we had other access to good reading material.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And then my other question relates to the comment about the McWanago Area School District. So we have students taking classes from McWanago Area School District.
correct, through the part-time enrollment program.
Right. And what kinds of classes are they taking
that we don't
offer?
If I recall, I think they're music-related courses.
Oh.
But on the part-time open enrollment, it's not we could offer the course and they can enroll into the course from somewhere else. They can do 2 courses of whatever they want from whatever institution they want.
How many kids do we have doing that?
Not many.
Okay.
I think we had McWanago last year too.
Okay.
In fact, that's the only school I can remember kids going to, but as Mr. Cadillac said, it could be more.
Do we have kids from other districts doing
Yes.
the same thing with us?
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Much higher clip than what
Okay.
we have that goes out. But it's, I don't want to say it's underutilized, but it's not utilized very much
By our students.
And also I would say coming in, it's usually either they're all in or
Got
not. It's rare that they just enroll in a couple of courses.
And do they have to physically go to those classes, or are they doing them remotely, or how do they?
Well, they can do it physically or remotely.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
The name of the program's changed over years. I think the DPI's called it different
It
things.
used to be part-time open enrollment.
It was called something else, and now it's part-time enrollment again.
Course options.
Course options.
Yeah.
Course
I
options.
remember course options. I remember that.
Yeah. But in a nutshell, any kid can take 2 classes from any institution they want, regardless of whether we offer.
Got it. Okay.
So, yeah.
I just was curious more than anything.
I had a student in a previous district, not this district, that they didn't like the band teacher, so they went to the neighboring district to take band from that school.
Okay.
And if you went to the DPI website, kind of look that up. There's like an application right online, and
Okay.
I don't,
So it's not something that our counselors really encourage, or promote, I should say.
Parents probably find it on their own. Or
Okay.
Maybe they were in a program with students from that area, so like violin or something like that.
So it's something
Probably.
that schools usually don't advertise.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I was looking at some of the expenditures there and wondering if we're kind of caught up with the water damage in the art room. I see there was quite a bit of supply allocations there. They feel pretty much whole again.
they will.
They will.
It's a work in progress, to be honest
And
with you.
is everything repaired and seem to be really
Yeah, I
where we
don't
need it to
think.
be?
Yeah, but to be honest with you, they haven't finished all their ordering.
Yeah,
So-
from a supply chain issue,
Oh.
it's probably going to take a while just
Yeah.
to get all of what they need.
You know, we talked about trying to have everything ordered maybe by spring break, so that we get it by the end of the school year.
Yeah.
So, but they're busy, so I haven't
Oh,
really
sure,
pressured them
sure.
on that.
And nothing more has happened there, so.
Correct.
The loss was the loss, and we're dealing with that and don't have to worry about
Additional losses?
Right. Hopefully, right?
Not a similar one. No.
It's not till next
Closed
one.
next week? Are the buildings closed next week?
Or what?
Are our buildings closed next week?
I won't be in them next week.
I think
I'm guessing that there's some access to it available in the buildings. I don't think we have a place down for all.
Yeah, I mean, our custodians, different custodial staff would be here next week unless they're taking a vacation.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is the fitness center staying open or?
it's a good
I
question.
think that closes.
Does it?
During the week. I think,
It usually closes.
I think
Closes if
so. I
school's not in
think so when
session.
the school's not in session.
Oh,
I don't
okay,
think
yeah,
they're open.
Yeah, Mr. Anselm had a conflicting commitment tonight, otherwise we can answer that for you, but they have it listed on the website.
Yeah.
Or you could pull up, anyone can access the calendar.
Right, yeah,
The
yeah.
facility use calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can pull that up later.
That's fine.
Other questions? All right, open the motion.
I move to approve the general and other fund bills of March 22nd, 2021. Check numbers 142474 to 142606. Wire numbers 875 to 882. ACH check numbers 312 to 331. Options renovation wire number 874. Debt service wire numbers 837 to 841. And voided check number 142481. In a combined amount of $3,948,137.80 as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a debate in a moment. It's been moved and seconded to approve the general and other fund bills of March 22nd, 2021. Checks numbered 142474 to 142606. Wire numbers 875 to 882. ACH check numbers 312 to 331. Options renovation wire numbers wire number 874. Debt service wire numbers 837 to 841. And voided check number 142481 for the combined amount of $3,948,137.80 as presented.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes, I
Mr.
just wish I
Mayor.
could pay, personally, have that much money to pay those bills. Just one, yeah. Sorry, I digress.
Mr. Gayheart?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. Martell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Yeah.
Report discussion, we probably don't have a student report, since we don't have a student.
Yep, that little table.
Table that. And then we have, Ms. G, I guess.
I'm
The mouse,
excited to
Mrs.
be able to
G.
use this board back there.
You know, before you started, you kept talking about Mrs. G, and I thought Mrs. G was like your
Like
first
the letter
initial,
I know.
You know, so it took me a while, like, who?
It's kind of funny. That has come back to me a few times. It's great. I was in Erica Gunderson's class today, and she was introducing me, obviously, as Mrs. G. And you could just see the perplexion on their faces as they're going between us. And she's like, "Okay, we're gonna have to explain that." And so we set that up. But yeah. Anyway, so terrific. Well, I'm so excited to be here tonight and face to face. Although I have to say, one of the pivots that I'll talk about is how wonderful sometimes these Google Meets can be for family engagement, and that'll be one of our takeaways tonight. So I was so inspired, as Sarah Bosch presented a few weeks ago with the 612 updates, that we kind of reshuffled, and I thought now is a good time to just also share where the elementary is at. We've wrapped up trimester 2. Report cards are going home in a couple of days to our families. The excitement in the air as we've made it this far. I have to tell you, I think teachers had some tears in their eyes on 100th day, which is a big deal, you know, at the elementary, because we literally had made it those 100 days. Fabulous, and we're still rolling. So super excited to be here tonight. Some of the things that I want to share tonight will be some visits to our classrooms, and just to review the protocols that are in place and how we managed to put them in place this year. We'll talk about how we're working to meet the needs of our students, both academically, socially, and emotionally. We'll share some data along with that. We're then going to share information about some ongoing initiatives. A lot of these were things we put in motion, and then we hit March last year, and where do we pick up the pieces, and how do we keep rolling with that without overwhelming students and teachers at this time. And then finally, just a quick highlight of some important pivots and takeaways from this experience, things that we're going to roll forward with next year also. All right, so thanks, Jason. I'm going to let you drive tonight. You can just keep clicking away. So one of the things is I was pulling together this presentation, trying to keep it focused and, under 2 hours, because there's just so much to share, was I wanted to share with you the communication that our elementary team sent out to all of our teachers and staff in August. Because I think it really framed up the work that we were about to do. There was a lot of trepidation, a little bit about coming back together, but there was more excitement than that our teachers wanted to get face-to-face with our students. We could figure this out, and we know we've made the right decision. We thank the school board for your support and Jason for your direction and leadership on this. But we knew we could make an impact, and we had last spring, but we knew we needed to get these kids back in and continue this work. We needed to stress that we are the face of the Elkhorn Area School District, that, however they were feeling, we needed to kind of mask that and be there for our students, be there for each other. And last year we coined this phrase, as we kept going month by month, was, we've got this. And then we were so worried about our students, we're like, we've got them. And finally it became really clear that we've also got each other, because as one team was up, other teams were supporting them. And, we really muddled through quite a bit last year, but we're very strong. And what's interesting is we're spread between 3 campuses, and we needed to continue to work together as an elementary unit. And so we have found better ways to do that as well. So we also coined this phrase, rather than saying a global pandemic, because obviously that's what we've been dealing with, we started to coin the phrase under these circumstances. Because what we were about to ask teachers to do this year was to forget some of the best practices that we had worked so hard and had done so much professional development on, and to say you're not going to be gathering students close by and doing these whisper pair shares. You're not going to be able to do fill in the blank. Instead, you're going to be doing this. And this is best practice under these circumstances. And they had to find the grace to move forward with that, because it really bothers them that this isn't best for kids. You're right. But under these circumstances, it is. And these are the protocols we have to follow. So that's how we found our way around that. So let's head into the classrooms. What we needed to do was we needed to space out those classrooms. So a lot of our teachers had to remove a lot of personal items out of those classrooms, some of those unique pieces of furniture, etc. Our rugs are all in storage because that wasn't going to happen that close time on the rug. And we provided them the time to do that, and we needed to use all that space. We had some beautiful new desks, and we will, through our ESSER funding, be finishing that initiative yet into next year, because the desks have been fantastic. Our K-5 teachers very appreciative of that. And soon we'll be able to hopefully move them into collaborative units as well. So they're very versatile. But we had to figure this out. Teachers needed to determine where their teaching space was and make sure that while our students may be at least 3 feet apart, they needed to have that 6 feet of space for the majority of the instruction. Now, at the elementary level, that's not going to happen all day long, that they still needed to be able to cruise between and do those things. So we also had our 15-minute opportunity spaces where we had teachers keep at least one large table to work one-to-one with students or in small groups, keeping that at about 14 minutes, 30 seconds before moving to the next group. And we also wanted some floor space so that groups could gather. Project Lead the Way takes space. And once they had their shields on and masks on, we knew based on what was happening with our students that they were not transferring things back and forth. We were really in a safe place there. So here's what our classrooms look like. I know none of you have really been able to get in there and see that this year, and I think we've shot some pictures in at times. But you'll see that students took to wearing both the shields as well as masks. I can say that today, in my time out at Tibbetts, we had only 3 students arrive out of 405 without a mask on today. It's that much part of their routine. They were shot down to the office within the first 20 minutes of the school day and received a mask, and it's just business as usual. So the desks have replaced that collaborative space, but what I love is students camp. That is like their whole camp around their desk. They're under their desk, they're near their desk, the desks have hooks. We're able to use a lot of things and then storage space even on the floor next to the desk. We also discovered we like outdoor learning a lot. You'll even see a snowbank in the background here because the day we hit about 58 degrees, teachers took classes outside because then students could unmask at times, and that's just fantastic. Thank you to the fairgrounds. They loaned us tables so that we could even set up additional learning environments at all 3 elementaries. So we'll see what we can figure out yet this spring, depending on events happening there, but we're grateful for that temporary school situation we were able to set up. In the far corner here, if you're hearing anything about a Gaga ball pit, this is like Foursquare on steroids. It is like this new game. So recess has been fantastic, and within, I think, the first month, we were able to reintroduce some of that hands-on equipment. We had a cleaning situation, you know, way to keep the balls, jump ropes, all that stuff clean, but it was time to bring out those as well for the kids. So that's been a really fun addition to all 3 schools have that. Okay, so there's a long laundry list here. Every year as part of our PBIS program, we have what's called a recess rodeo, where students come out and they learn how to act and behave on the playground. Like, this is the way we're going to go down the slide. This is the way we're going to play Gaga ball. This is where your door is. This is how we line up. And we have found that obviously teaching specific procedures like that decrease behavior issues and other things that we could be dealing with all year long. So we took the idea of a recess rodeo and we came up with a COVID rodeo for our students. And these were all of the elements, and working with our elementary teachers, that we needed to, first of all, figure out the procedure for how this needs to happen based on CDC guidelines, the Walworth County advising us, Mary Trottier advising us. And then once we learned what it needed to look like, we needed to then teach our students. So teachers made a lot of videos. We put this together for each building so they'd see familiar faces. But some of the things we had to do was stagger our children. We couldn't send all the kids to their lockers at the same time. So we came up with color coordinated groups. So the purple group might be checking the mailbox, and the blue group's heading to the hallway to do this, and etc. Sometimes they're seated that way also in the cafeteria. So they were in little mini cohorts within their classroom. You know, we had to talk about mask wearing, obviously. One of the most interesting things was the cafeteria Olympics. We now have littles carrying trays back to their classroom to eat. So we could reduce the cafeteria time, 50%. So you have half of our students in there. And it's been fantastic. When we talked about the book flicks a few weeks ago, teachers are also showing that during the lunchtime. Other things, it's been good. We've been able to do that, and students have that camaraderie right there in the classroom. One of the things, though, was teaching students how to social distance. And I can't say we're getting an A in that department, but we're trying, because they're just like little magnets coming together.
Of course.
One of the teachers attempted this. There's a quick video here. I don't know if any of you saw this on Facebook. This is from Deb Degner's class. This was how she introduced social distancing.
Oh, I did see that.
Yep.
Yes. I thought, cute idea.
Not that we had them walk around like that all day, but just to understand the space that they needed.
Yep. There was an adult who made an outfit that had that. I saw it. So maybe she got it from there.
All right. So we held our COVID rodeos early in the school year, as well as our recess rodeos, and the students really took to these new procedures very, very quickly and easily. We were able to debunk, could elementary students really wear a mask? And the answer is yes. And those are big smiles underneath it. They are really fabulous at it. You'll see that we have these purple breakaway lanyards where we have the clips so they can just easily clip them on themselves if they do need to take a break or they're outside doing some outside learning. We don't have a lot of lost masks that way. Really, the only highlight we can come up with for those 6 days of virtual learning that we did, see their students' faces, full faces, while online on their Google Meets. So that was their happy takeaway, and that was, you didn't even think of that until it happened. They're like, we could see their faces though, and you're like, oh my gosh.
And we actually hired a new employee, all had masks, and it wasn't until we hired her, she's taking a drink and she pulls her mask on. That's what you look like.
Right?
You don't even think about it because it's so normal to see the mask.
It is. It's just finding the good in wherever we are and whatever's happening. Quick snapshot of our specialist classrooms. Our students are carefully checking out books, again, in those cohorts while in the library. We do have a system of quarantining as they come back and then reshelving, so we've got that down. But they're doing a lot of other, media activities as well and technology, so we're spread out on the floor. PE class students have their masks on. Using the equipment, we know that if we use this with grade 2, then and usually the way things are set up is some of our specialists' time we switched to an hour so that they would have that full hour of PE, so we didn't have to worry about cleansing the activity. So if, say, second grade is using scooters then go into hibernation for 24 hours until the next second grade class rotates in at 10 o'clock the next day. So we found ways around that. Here you can see space blocked out, and then because we knew in the art room they'd be especially close with also the other shield on, we've not had any issues with transmission in that situation. So specialists are happy to be teaching in their specialist classrooms and not going between classes. We too had to address the needs of our remote learners, and what we did was we built upon something we did last spring. One of the things I think we did hit upon right away, which worked well for our elementary families with multiple students, is all teachers utilize the same lesson template each day. So if you had a first grader and a third grader, your lessons came on the same format. The document looked like this. The content was different. The links, of course, were different, but that was your starting point. So a parent wasn't reading things that all looked different. We all needed to be united on this. So for the days we were all remote, we again use this, except they always have a morning message to go to anchor them. We embedded a student check-in electronically, and then we kind of listed like when are the small group times, and then a family would know, oh, my child's on at 1 o'clock. If they couldn't make that time, clearly they could click into another one. And then all of the activities and teacher contact information was there. For our students who were quarantined, we did something very different. While we applied middle and high school who may have virtual learners and face-to-face going simultaneously, we really found a workaround at the elementary, because I think it would be extremely hard to be running a kindergarten classroom while trying to anchor our virtual learners. So when we put this to the teachers, we had some ideas, they had some ideas. We've had some wonderful teachers who have stepped forward, and they have also taken on the remote learning task. We have shifted this from different cohorts of teachers because it's a lot. Basically, they received a small stipend, they gave up their prep time to then connect with those families. We have a united shared folder where all of our kindergarten lesson plans are, first grade lesson plans. So the remote teacher can have eyes on what's happening across the district. It is another fellow first grade teacher, second grade teacher, and they are kind of seeing what's happening, and we're all trying to keep pace as well. And then they'll take on those remote learners. At the peak, we had quite a few remote learners. We could have 10 at a grade level, and sometimes we opened another section because that was too many to have on those virtual calls. Right now, I don't think we have anyone doing any remote learning right now. So it's really, really slowed down to a very manageable amount of time. Therefore, we have some unemployed remote learning teachers, and they're just fine with that also. So we found a way, and when we talk to our other elementary districts around here, they're like, how are you doing that, in person and virtual with your littles? And we're like, we're not. We found a way to keep that burden away from our teachers so we could really focus on the needs of the students in the classroom. Okay, so speaking of the needs, let's talk about academic needs and social emotional needs and some things that we're doing this year to address that. All right. Last spring, in addition to our teachers teaching virtually and figuring out the ins and outs with that, we really utilized time for district meetings to say, we know we have to prepare to bring them back. We set the course for how we were going to finish the year and what units we were going to finish and standards, but knowing that we may be seeing a little bit of a deficit in our students, how do we address that? And the most important thing we needed to do is we needed to revisit our standards. So our 3 campuses by grade level, we pulled out our math, our reading, and we call them communication standards, the writing, speaking, and listening. And we pulled those apart, and each grade level team identified what they thought were the most critical standards that needed to be in place for foundational building blocks. That's not to say all the standards aren't important, but some do carry a little more weight than others. We then brought our teams together and we hashed it out and came up with what we call our purple power standards. Those are our non-negotiables that really need to be secure. Every student leaving that grade level really needs to have this mastered. Our gold standards, not to be forgotten, are also very important, but we took all that we had to teach and we then delineated purple power standards and then the gold standards. So after we did that, we broke down, well, what are the essential skills that need to be in place to build up and lead up to that mastery of the standard. And then we revisited our curriculum scope and sequences and tried to make sure, like, where is that embedded? Where do we need to see more of that? We really know our reading sequence right now, our math sequence. Are there some things that need to kind of shift and not be as important as we're coming back? The reason this work was so crucial is, as a second grade teacher, if I have students working below second grade in certain areas, I can scoop into first grade and pull that forward and redefine, okay, this is what has to be in place. This is what first grade set out. This is where I'm starting with a few of my students. I don't lower this bar. I don't take the whole class back here. I take the students who need that there during our intervention time, and this is all scaffolded. So hopefully we can close that gap. We then focused on how do we better measure the mastery? If we say this is important, are we drilling down deep enough to ensure that our students really have that mastered? It can't be determined by one assessment given in October. We need to keep revisiting that because some students aren't ready to jump that bar yet. Others are clear over it and maybe don't need that reassessed but need some enrichment. And so how do we do that? Of course, at the elementary, running records are a critical assessment in reading. It tells us so much, as well as the math assessment. We then developed additional common assessments for each of those standards that we highlighted as most important, which also led us to looking at an assessment we used to give known as the PALS. Each district has to give a reading readiness assessment. DPI outlines that in 4K through second. We have to have that assessment. We have to report out to families on that assessment. You can develop your own, or you could use a variety of tools. We had been using something called the PALS assessment, which was okay. We looked at that this year and we said that's not going to tell us everything we need to know. We also used another tool called Haggerty every day with our students on phonological awareness. Wow, there were some subtests there that were fabulous. And we had another tool that we were using and we thought, why not just put the best of everything together and make our own reading readiness assessment? So kindergarten started that work and first grade looked over and was like, we want that. We want to write that. And it carried up all the way even to third grade. So again, a second grade teacher with a struggling reader can go back and give the first grade assessment now, and we can see which pieces are not in place, and that's our starting point. And so that was, I'm just very proud of our reading specialists who led that work, as well as the classroom teachers who pulled over to say, we've got to have something better. And now we'll be using this every year. Okay, that led us to, last year I had talked to you about a grading and reporting system known as Otis. As we came to a halt, our Otis PD came to a halt and some of the development we were doing with teachers. But that didn't mean our families didn't deserve to know how are their students doing with all of those standards now that we have really drilled down. We had the assessments we needed. So we have some teachers who are continuing to use Otis as far as developing some assessments, using it as an online system similar to a Google Classroom, which is great. But we knew we couldn't wait to onboard that many educators to revitalize our grading and reporting. So we went ahead and drafted and utilized Skyward, a more standards-based grading system. This was the message that went out to parents with the report card first trimester. We then looked at all of those standards that we had highlighted as the most important, and we listed them under the different components of reading, the 5 different strands of math. Sometimes you'll see a gray box in there. That means it's not evaluated that trimester. It doesn't come in the curriculum until a little bit later. We have a 3-2-1 marking And that 3 is that your child has mastered, demonstrate strong mastery, all the way down to the 1 where we're not yet developing there. We also have an X, which means not evaluated at this time. This looks a lot prettier than how it comes out on Skyward. This was our draft where we did our writing and developing of that, but it prints very nicely. I don't know, I think Matt, you've probably seen what it looks like. It's a big change from when we gave one, I wouldn't even say just kind of an achievement grade, K2, to letter grades already, 3-5, in just 1 grade. Reading, math, writing, and now when you get to reading, we've got all that whole left column is all reading, including what is their reading level, and is it above, below, or at grade level. These act specific to inform our family.
It's really informative.
Yeah, that's great. Way
So,
different.
and then in addition to the subjects, we also have a stronger behavioral and student skill development area where we can drill down into some of those just life readiness skills that we expect our students to have. And we had all of our teachers chimed in on this as to what they wanted on this report card, what was most crucial for the academics as well as the social emotional piece. So
can you see us staying with this?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Definitely.
All this effort to put into it.
Well, and even the teachers were like, and now Otis, and we said, you know what? We have this in place. Sometimes taking the assessments we've developed and now trying to push them into Otis is like, no. Especially our K2s are like, no. For some of our teachers, though, there's some really good tools on the system. So now we'll probably be at this time lowering like our number of seats for next year. So it's more our 3rd through 5th grade teachers who would have access because they found a way to use the tool. But Skyward, we worked with Skyward, Randy Dricken, myself, Brenda Harris is very skilled on it, and we were able to put the report card in there. So as we have a few other important things to address right now, we may circle back and look at how to use Otis in the bigger scheme, but we had to really firm up which standards were the most critical, or we would have opened a whole can of worms on Otis with way too many standards and reports that are 8 pages long for parents, and we needed to make sure we were tight on our work. And the most important thing is the teachers came on this journey and they have a much tighter union with what it is they're teaching. We've really tightened that up.
So
great.
Yeah. So, all right. So taking a look at our data snapshots. Jason knows I love map data. I live in map data, and I look forward to just kind of seeing what's happening with our cohorts of students out there. So the quick and easy snapshot here is this is what our winter picture looks like. And you might say, okay, anytime that gold diamond is sitting within the purple, that's a good thing because the gold diamond is where the national average is, and anytime there's purple reaching above it, that means that we're above that national line. So that's a good thing. Or at it, so we're not below.
Yeah, I would just add that national average that was norm pre-COVID times.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we're seeing our growth outpacing the
right, and because a lot of people say they're doing well in your district, so you're reading that.
So that's a very good point, Jason. Thank you for bringing that up. All right. So, in following how Sarah Bosch put her data together, I thought, well, let's look at the similar trend over that period of time, and we'll start up here. As we look at our students, this is their RIT score, and defining a RIT score is kind of an estimation of their instructional level. Kind of like we use A to Z for reading levels as well. This just kind of gives you a number of where they're working at, and there's like a grade level correlation to that. But it also measures their progress and growth. And many of you as parents know, well, you would receive that MAP report and it would say your child should grow 11 points this year in reading. And then you could see, did they meet their target growth? Where are they at with that? And really, we feel extremely strongly that every child, it doesn't matter if you're a special ed student, a gifted student, and somewhere in the middle, everyone should be growing a year's growth based on their individualized projection. And that's what I loved very much about math when this assessment came out. And I was in the classroom when this all came about, and it was pivotal. So you'll see that in the area of reading, that score right there is the score that our students were achieving in winter all of these years. So this is based on our winter dipstick. Same with first grade, second. So you just kind of glance across and you'll say, okay, so here's this winter, 2020-21. Okay. Then you slide across, and I think the next two columns are also important to me. The first one is, this is where we were, this was our grade level percentile nationally, based on our fall scores. The next column over is now what's our percentile based on our winter scores. And what's good is those numbers, even though it's just a little in 4th and 5th grade, are going in the right direction. They're going up. I'd be happy even if they stayed solid, but they're even going up a little. And that's based on norms, again, that are pre-COVID. So the other thing is, and our teachers are well aware of this, that on a normal day of assessing, typically 50% of the students should be able to meet or exceed their target growth. That's just kind of a standard known with math testing, that you got about a 50-50 chance that the kids are gonna definitely step up that day and show you what they know. So knowing that, we like to see that above 50%, that our kids are definitely performing, and you'll see that all of the grade levels are above the 50, with 50% of the kids or more achieving that. I'm going to now back to the bottom here with reading. Here is where what we're seeing in our data discussions and in looking at kids and in kind of going, well, what are we going to do here? This definitely aligns to what we're seeing. On a pre-COVID year in Elkhorn, this is not national data, this is just our own. When a child took the winter, from a winter kindergarten score to a winter first grade score, that's kind of a weird time of a year, but we would see that score improve by almost 22 points. They come in 22 points higher than the previous winter. This year, they're about 14 points higher. So you might say, okay. Now, look at that score though. Okay, when we get to math, you'll see some of our scores are even higher than previous years. So one of the things we can transfer from that is I think some of the math concepts transferred better than some of the reading ELA concepts that are some of those things like digraphs, certain sounds, much harder to teach online than working at a table with a small group. We normally would have almost 12 points of growth. We're at about 10 points of growth in first grade. Here, normal is 11, but look at what we're doing in second grade. Second to third, they came in with 12. Second grade teachers were really on the ball with some of that learning last year, that we didn't miss a beat. We're very close here, and there's less deviation in third, fourth, and fifth grade.
But they do lower as they get older.
Yeah, the anticipated growth is definitely lower, and we're right in there. The dramatic loss isn't there that you would see here. So we're well aware of that. We've got a lot of things in place to address that. And again, what we're excited about is when we look just from fall to winter, we normally average 12 points, and we're at 11. So now that we've got them back, what they're doing is pretty close. Look at first grade, they normally grew by this many points, and they're growing by this. Here's second grade, look at third and fourth, they're actually showing a little more growth than they have in years past with that average. So we're getting them moving, and we're doing all we can. This was reading, and Jason, if you would just share, same idea, I'll get out of the way so you can just see the snapshot there. I think we would say there's less of a gap in math. Let's just start at the bottom. So normally 26.5 points is what we saw winter to winter with kindergarten to first grade. We're at almost 20 here. So that's a little bit less of a gap. That just goes across. And again, one of the exciting things here in math is once you start in second grade, third, fourth, and fifth, they're making up that loss right now. They're on it. Look at these growth numbers are larger than in the past, the average. And here's where I turn here. Our K1s would say we get good information from math. Probably the running record is the more targeted assessment right now for our younger sitting down to take an electronic computer test. This is still very good information, but we really lean more into that running record, and are they at a level A or have they gotten to that level D? Because there's so many things we can diagnose along the way there. One of the things you can see is where you go and follow that diagonal, and I tried to get your eye to follow that as Sarah did, is they are growing though. We haven't stopped growing. They continue to move and move. And when you look at our percentage of kids reaching target growth in the area of math,
It's a lot.
yeah, they're doing a great job. They're doing a great job. Look at where we started, from the 90th percentile now to the 95th, our composite score. They are just going right up. So, and that's pre-preparing ourselves too. So I would say that reading was a little bit harder, especially at our younger age level, to transfer that in a virtual situation. We've got our students back. We know exactly who is struggling, who disengaged at that time. We knew that coming in. I can't imagine what districts are dealing with a full year of digital learning. I wish them the best, because.
And we do hear those out there that kids just aren't doing well, they're not testing well, they're all that. So this is really impressive.
Yep. So I think we're very optimistic about the data we're getting. We're seeing that, we've got momentum. Many of our students didn't miss a beat at all. They were engaged in the virtual learning. They came back, and we need to keep them learning at the rate that they're accustomed to also. So we are definitely well aware of that as well. What we have done in meeting the academic needs is our grade level PLCs. They meet weekly, very data driven, looking at all those different assessments and who needs what. Our workshop model in both reading and math allows teachers to have students grouped according to the level they're working at as they rotate through different tasks in the classroom, so that our high achievers are given what they need, and our students who are still filling a few of those gaps are getting that direct instruction. But the whole mini lesson, the bar is still here, and there's constant exposure to that grade level content as well. We have done our deep dive data discussions at each of the buildings. This year they were a little bit shorter than we would like, just due to shortages of subs. Teachers gave up prep time, came in. We worked through really targeting who are our tier 3s and prescribing what they needed in intervention. Our win time, what I need time, is still 30 minutes daily. Right now we have 13% of our elementary students receiving a tier 3 intervention. We'd like to see that lower at least 10%, but we right now have the bandwidth that we can accommodate that many. It's a full house in that sense, but it's only 13% of our students are needing that remedial time. We have many others that are in tier 2. That could just be a review of some of those concepts. When those second grade essential skills are not secure, that's what's happening during tier 2 with our classroom teachers. And then already we have lined up, thank you to Brian Frost, getting summer school organized for our students. You hear that as a novelty in some districts. That's just common practice in Elkhorn. But we do offer a reading fundamental and a math fundamental class, and those are our invite-only classes. And we are extending, we figure, about 136 invitations out to our students, hoping parents will respond to that. Those are going home with report cards. Teachers have mentioned that. We're really building up. And to alleviate having parents make a call in to register, we just went back to a paper form that all they have to do is fill out the form, send it back with their child, and we're waiting to gather those up and get those kids registered. So, all right. And we also have some social emotional needs to address with our kiddos. So in preparing for the school year, we found some really good literature about social distancing, Lucy's mask wearing, COVID-19 for kids. We'll see how many times these books are read. They may not come back out after 2 years, let's hope, but we do have a new library that our teachers shared during their read aloud time. And then in working with Rita Galfas and her pupil services folks, we decided that we would adopt the zones of regulation program and take what is normally an intervention and break this down kindergarten through 5th grade with 3 months of lessons. Our students have really glommed onto this. In fact, we had Mrs. Beekle was doing a running record, a reading assessment with a child, and asked, how did the skunk feel at the end of the story. And she was told that the skunk was feeling yellow. He was in the yellow zone because his family was moving houses, but as soon as they settled in, he would be in the green zone again. And that's perfect application of that. And then giving kids the strategies they need when they're not in the green zone to learn, and then, you know, kind of putting them in control as to what do you need to do to settle down so you're ready to learn again. One of the things also, Jason, if you would check on the second box down, the second link, I'm sorry. We also came up with a daily check-in that we still utilize, especially, we use it with all students, but our 3-5, it's done electronically, so if we switch to virtual learning, we have it. You can see kids identify their zone, they explain why, etc. And the reason this is super important is, especially at 4th and 5th grade, our teachers are rotating rooms this year instead of our students to keep transmission down and to, you know, avoid cleaning these desk services over and over again. They all have access to that spreadsheet, so they know where these kids are at as they're coming into those classrooms. It's very confidential, it's just shared within those teachers, but this gives us an idea. And again, our students know how to do it, so if we go to a virtual format, we have that social emotional check-in piece really in place. I give credit to Natalie Irby, our Tibbetts team out there, brought this to us last year, and it's something we've just rolled into the Zones program as a daily check-in. Allows us to track how kids are coming in also and gather data. All right, we're in the home stretch. Initiatives. Some of this we had rolling. You know, we're an Avid elementary school, we're an Avid K-12 district. We had a really new tool we built last year, and this year we're finally able to utilize it to ensure teacher efficacy with how we're working with our Avid elementary program. The state last year rolled out some updated social studies standards. We just got to the point of determining how to better support that with our 3-5s, and then COVID came, but we're still rolling out some wonderful new tools, which I'll share with you. And leave it to Project Lead the Way to develop all new modules. So we are now 100% Project Lead the Way at the elementary level. All 3 trimesters now, we are embedded in Project Lead the Way. It used to be 2 out of the 3. We were supplementing with Pearson Science, still a very good science program, but now we're hands-on all the time. So nothing like throwing in new modules at this time as well. But how do you say no to that? It's so great, and the feedback is wonderful. So Jason, as you quickly go through here, you'll see that these are our students in action with Project Lead the Way. Here's just some of the new titles that came on board. The report from teachers is they love it. The kids are loving this. What we're finding as we're now crosswalking the social studies, there's a lot of social studies standards also covered, especially in some of the environmental units, things like that. So we're really happy. Feedback from teachers is this is really good. So we're happy to be 100% Project Lead the Way at the elementary. Our social studies curriculum implementation, we worked heavily with 3-5, wanting to get that to, I guess you could say, higher ground. That is a curriculum that really did need to be revisited, and then we can add in a lot of our Avid strategies and other you know, reading instruction, things like that. So we have gone with Houghton Mifflin Harcourt to support that work. Our students have these magazines that come home in grades 3-5. They can annotate, utilize them. They're super engaging. Here's just a snapshot of one of them. There's a timeline there, American celebrations. They also have virtual field trips. It's a great time to have virtual field trips. So using our own technology, kids can be on field trips all the time without leaving the school district. So that's awesome. In grade K2, we're just starting that work now that we have more substitutes available and we can have a little release time to get rolling with that. And then finally, Avid, we continue to work on Wicker as well. Wicker is something that you've probably heard 612, as Sarah's presented about how they embedded Wicker and tried to come up with a way to Wickerize things, whether it was virtually or face-to-face. We too are working on those elements of Wicker, except at the elementary level. Here you'll see some of our students using the Socratic seminar there, breaking that down already at the elementary. Thanks, Jason. Last year, what we did was we wrote a K-5 matrix of what does the W, you know, the writing component, the inquiry component, the organization component, the collaboration component, the reading component look like at each grade level. What would be appropriate strategies? links, what fits there. So if I'm introducing that in second grade, my third grade teachers know they're coming with knowledge about this. And those are linked there. So our avid site team members worked really hard to create this scope and sequence for Elkhorn, and then we did not have the time to launch with it. So this year we are, through our professional development each month, our site team members are co-authoring these PD opportunities. Teachers send in their photos, their artifacts from each month, so then we have this library of ideas. Again, it's keeping our 3 sites all moving together on these initiatives. So we have done some great avid work as well. All right, final slide, final takeaway here is that one of the things that the use of technology has shown us is that we have increased family engagement by not having the families in the building at times. And that sounds completely crazy, but we have found this to work really well. Our families engaged super quickly into this process. We had to flip many things so that we could continue to do these things. We do have to have family engagement events, but what does that look like under these circumstances, right? We have done a virtual setup for Success Night, where that was a night we had families come in and they had 30 minutes with a grade level to learn about the grade level, and they might be given some game ideas or ways to support their learner at home. Well, we had to make that virtual. And what's so nice is parents can watch that whenever they wanted to. They didn't have to find childcare. We weren't scrambling to provide childcare, and families logged into that and watched. Same with our fall and winter conferences. Childcare was a non-issue. We sent home folders for each child the night before. Parents had a chance to look everything over and then engage in the conference. No one was caught off guard at the table. We didn't have children kind of making their way around the room and you're like, do I address the child or do I address the parents at this moment? Really good turnout for conferences as well, going to a virtual format. PTO meetings, I think we have greater membership just because, again, you don't have to find the childcare for your child. Our kindergarten open house, we're surveying our kindergarten teachers. They did 10 minutes one-to-one with each family, and we're there 2 evenings. They said it was the best thing they've ever done to get to know the child without 10 families suddenly walking in simultaneously. And how do you do that? It was one-to-one. We're looking at that again. And then other family engagement opportunities, K-5, Patty Woods has done a great job of programming for our 4K families, sending home kits of things. You see a lot of advertisement for our virtual art night with the DIY painting going on. You know, we're just doing all we can. Hopefully we'll have a balance between face-to-face and virtual next year, but we have tapped into something really wonderful, and our families have been so supportive coming on to these virtual calls. So, and just actually, I like this. So that's it. Under these circumstances, this is how it looks. So any questions? Thank you all for your support in bringing us back face-to-face. We feel it was such the right decision, and yeah. So good.
Thank you. I think we have to reach out and acknowledge all the hard work that staff has done.
Yeah.
And you know, recognizing change is always difficult, no matter what.
No.
And family engagement being critical, that's great. What I really like is the invitation summer school and changing the perception that it's not a punishment. That we're reinforcing this, and when parents buy in that this is extended to me to let my child catch up or accelerate.
Yes.
And I think we got a great start on it, and all of our staff should be recognized for all the hard work they've done for it.
Couldn't agree more with
But I
you,
think
Paul.
it's fantastic.
So thank you. We're hoping to build those summer school schedules so that if they have that hour block, we have a box where parents can check, please fill the rest of my morning for my child with the other enrichment type things, so that they're rotating between those, and then they can ride the bus in and ride the bus home and have the lunch. So we're hoping, if you know, some families just need that picture re-explained, broken down a little bit more. So
And changing the perception that it's not a punishment going to summer school.
exactly. Yeah. I'll let you know how it goes.
Good luck.
So we get that enrollment.
No, I think it should be, and I think more and more people are seeing it differently now, and with the family engagement we have, it's easier to convey that message to them.
I think with our long tradition of having that enrichment summer school piece, where over a third of the kids in the district participate in that, it's kind of that stigma may not be there as opposed to
Yeah.
the districts that just have the.
But now that you're taking math or reading or writing or, you know, no, we're just getting
But
up
if you
to
have a
speed.
combination of
Yes,
them.
right.
Which we've always had the reading and
Right,
the math.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah.
and- yeah.
Yeah. We're just
So I
hoping to pull
agree
more
with you
in.
wholeheartedly, Paul, that yeah, you don't want that stigma to be there.
From personal experience, my daughter's in the K-1 group or whatever you showed her, and she, you know, I've seen it that she's really accelerated this year. And I was really worried about it, to be honest, because after got kind of shut down, and with kindergarten, I knew that being in the remote environment wasn't going to be as much as Amy and I were there to be a topper and everything. We're not professional teachers, so we didn't know really what we were doing. So when you throw it back into that environment, I was worried that it was going to be like this huge snowball effect, but it wasn't, and she really accelerated. So
That social aspect, even though they're distancing, even though they're wearing masks, that is so important. That learned behavior, what's accepted, what's not accepted, and just learning how to interact.
Your color code thing, the emotional color code thing, explains a lot, because I think the other night I was reading a pigeon book, and the pigeon books, and when the pigeon always gets really mad.
Oh, yeah.
I think she said something like, "I think the pigeon's in the red." I didn't really explain it. You know, at the time, I didn't really understand what she said.
Maybe I could send you the color coding if that would help you decode things. So that's
Well, maybe
great.
you'll use it on Amy one time. I think you're in the red.
That's great. That's a great story.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Very,
Yeah,
very
thank
helpful.
you. That's very thorough.
Mm-hmm.
And it was under 2 hours. So.
Yeah.
No one's in the red, I hope. I hope we're still green. We're going strong here.
No, I think we're still in the green.
Okay, good.
Okay, the links are there that you can take a look. I believe we have 2 positive cases among students, possibly a third one coming up. So we do have a few students that have been quarantined. We have adopted the 3-foot area in regards to quarantine, so long as the kids are wearing the face mask. So one of the quarantine situations happened, the only kids who were quarantined were at the lunch table together, and they don't wear the face mask while eating. So even though there are 3 feet,
It might not, still might not be an issue.
Yeah.
You have to see.
Yep. Right, and in our experience, it typically isn't. So we'll monitor that as well as we follow the new recommendation and guideline. But as we learn, and Amy talked about, for example, we started the year off not playing with balls. As they learn more that hey, you really don't catch it unless you're going to lift the ball after someone spins on the ball. And
there are
it's very unlikely, So as we've learned more, that those things have rolled back in. So just wanted to let you all know that we are within that 3 feet. That should really reduce the number of individuals quarantined because we can space 3 feet. Most of our classrooms, even the largest class in the middle school, most can separate 6 feet. The elementaries are 4.5 feet roughly. But all of them we can do the 3 feet.
Good.
Okay. So that's all I have for the COVID update, unless there's questions related to that. Next round of vaccines for hundreds of the staff will be on Friday and Saturday. And 2 weeks out of that, it should be good.
Oh, that's a for break.
Right.
Oh, that was good timing.
Yes, that worked out well. And I think that what really worked out well is, remember those 5 additional days we built in for the year? We picked those 2 months before we knew the vaccine dates. But the first vaccine date was one of the Fridays that we took off, and this Friday was one of the other days that we took off. So a lot of the schools had to end up taking those days off anyway, because the logistics and trying to run stuff back and forth is possible. So we had good fortune smiling on us when we picked those dates. All right. That's all I had for the COVID update.
All right. What do you got for personnel?
All right, we got a number of personnel items here. First, we want to announce the retirement of Michael Datza. He is going to be retiring after 7 years with the school district and 25 years working in public
Doesn't
education.
seem like he's been here 7 years, like Joe has been gone 7 years. It just
Time
doesn't seem possible.
flies.
Yeah, I'm getting older.
And yeah, so Mike is looking at his retirement in August, and so we'll be able to bring someone on board and have them work together in the summer a little bit. But want to thank him for all of his service. He oversaw 3 significant referendums in that 7-year period. Over almost $48 million in construction projects.
Yeah, I really can't imagine going through those large referendum projects that we had in 2015, 16 without Mike's input in that whole process. Yeah, and his expertise.
All right. We also want to thank Beth Ivy for her service as a high school track assistant coach. She's resigned that position. We have a transfer of Yvonne Fanshaw, who will be moving from middle school English language arts over to the middle school social studies position. Appointment of Sean Kaczynski as a sports staff and teaching assistant at the middle school. Appointment of Caitlin Blatter, who is our social worker over at the Curran College Academy and Options and Sophos, and she'll be moving over to the 612, taking Mary Ellen Wright's position. And then we'll work with the county to backfill Caitlin's position. We have the appointment of Michael Storley as the high school girls basketball head coach. BZ Kaiser as a high school girls soccer assistant coach. Aaron Wells as the high school girls soccer assistant coach as well.
Questions, comments?
I have a question on the transfer, not being up to date and all that with all that certification changes. Is she going to have to take some CEUs or the praxis test or anything? I know she has a lot of experience and degrees, but I'm just wondering, as they shift from one certification to another.
Yeah, so
are there any
Yvonne
concerns or
no, because Yvonne has a 1.9 license. So most of our middle school teachers are actually 1.9 certified, which means they can teach any subject area. If she were a 612 certified teacher, then she would. There'd be a lot of work. It's actually quite the hassle. Yeah. That being said, there's a philosophy in a lot of middle schools that you only hire 1.9 teachers because it gives you all that flexibility.
Yeah.
The flip side is, in fact, I think the only teacher that we had at the middle school, I could be wrong, but Mr. Poggensee for a long time was the only 612 certified teacher. So he can only teach science.
Miss Reese's.
Miss Reese's.
Is 612, yeah.
So, yes. So to answer the question, in this case, no, because she's a 1.9.
I just knew in the past that was a concern, and I just was.
No, it's a good question.
At least voice it so that we didn't say, "Oh,
yeah,
we didn't look into that."
It can be quite the hassle if they're 612 certified to try to get certified in another area.
Yeah, because then I know they have to do the praxis testing or CEUs, and then there's a gray window and transitions. And I was just, if we don't have to worry about it, let's go.
No, that's it.
Other questions? Otherwise, looking for a motion.
I move to approve the personnel recommendation sheet for March 2021, including new employment contracts conditioned upon passing the background check and district mandated drug screening as presented.
There's a second.
I'll second.
So moved and seconded to approve the personal recommendation sheet for March 22nd, 2021, including new employment contracts conditioned upon passing the background check and district mandated drug screening as presented. I haven't been able to do this for like a year, so I'm going to do it. All those, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, that was really nice.
All those opposed? It's been like a year since we've been able to.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
because it's always
Because of the
virtual.
policy.
Oh, because Paul's not
The policy says they.
Paul, we're gonna
All night for fun.
We'll see what happens in 2 weeks then.
I almost forgot how to do it.
I know. What are you doing?
I felt it.
I wasn't thinking.
Oh, that's funny. All right.
Who gets rid of it?
Those school gifts.
No middle school gift or no gifts to present this evening. Sorry.
Just pick it on the middle school.
Health insurance then.
Yeah, this evening we'd like to provide you with an update on the work that our Employee Insurance Advisory Committee has been doing this year and some of their recommendations. And to kind of put it in context, if you click to the there, kind of came up, this was a discussion probably a year ago that between Jason and Shannon Sweeney and Human Resources and Supervisor and myself, started talking about health insurance and what's the trend, what are we seeing, and we kind of came up with, status quo is not an option. And this chart just kind of shows what our insurance had looked like over the last 10 or 11 years and kind of the annual adjustment. And probably the most significant there is the last 2 years in a row, we've seen over 10% increase. So I think that kind of started us thinking a little bit is we need to approach this a little differently. How can we kind of do that? The other thing, if you look at the carriers, we've changed carriers 5 times in 11 years. And we tweaked our plan and we, changed co-pays, we changed to a high deductible plan. So we've done all of those things. So I think part of our work then was looking at, who could kind of help us through maybe more of a strategic kind of planning process. Jason was familiar in his previous life working with Associated Financial, which is now called USI. USI is a very familiar name in the school market for consulting services on different benefit programs. So they became kind of a natural kind of direction for us to go to. Then as part of that, we also started looking at our Employee Insurance Advisory Committee and trying to bring in maybe some new people into this process who haven't been involved previously. So we looked, and I'm not going to read the names for you, but you can kind of see the people that were involved, their position, where they work in terms of location, because we wanted to try to get a cross-representation of not only location, gender, age, kind of all of that within the mix, because we knew health insurance affects people differently. So trying to have a good mix was important. And then Mr. Scarrow and Mr. Martell as board reps were also on that committee along with Shannon, Jason, and myself. So we initiated a strategic planning process, and we had actually 4 meetings. And of course, they're all virtual meetings because we couldn't really meet as a group. But our first meeting was kind of just to get feedback from the committee members about our insurance program and what they like about our benefits, what's the culture here in the school district. So I won't read these all to you, but you get kind of a sense of what people were thinking. And I think overall, generally, people were fairly satisfied really with our plans, but they had some things that they'd like to see changed too. So we kind of looked at that. We came up with a vision statement. Elkhorn Area School District recognizes our employees are the key to the success of our district. To attract and retain quality employees, we will provide a competitive benefit package that considers the health and well-being of employees, their diverse needs, and the affordability to both employees and the district. We commit to providing the appropriate level of choice, education, resources, and incentives to engage our employees and their families in becoming better consumers of healthcare, with an emphasis on enhancing our overall wellness. So kind of like grandma and apple pie. It's hard to argue with that, but that was kind of the mission statement. Then our next meeting was really the education phase. And that's where we had USI kind of provide information on, well, what are we paying for our health insurance? And you kind of click on that. We'll just kind of run through those slides real quickly. Well, we kind of took a look starting off of, well, how much are we paying for health insurance? What's that as a percent of our budget? And then what's driving our health insurance costs? So we kind of, if you kind of just kind of page through that, Jason, We kind of looked at our own plan. We knew we were running over 100% on a loss ratio. So by doing nothing, we knew we were going to see probably a pretty significant change in our health insurance costs. So again, some of that was just kind of educating the committee. Things that are affecting healthcare costs, a lot of it gets back to just cost shifting that's going on in the industry. Medicare, Medicaid are paying less, so it really comes to all the private insurers in terms of, and us, that pay more for that. So obviously utilization, a variety of other things factor into that. And then we kind of talked about fundamental strategic planning, cost, culture, and kind of compliance, and the intersection of all of those, and trying to be making sure we're considering all of that as we move forward in the process. Traditional approaches, raise employees' contribution, reducing benefits, more co-pays, deductibles. That's typically what has happened in the industry. So is there a better way? So we started looking at some other districts. Elkhorn's listed there, Elmbrook, New Glarus, Whitewater. For some districts that we looked at, especially as you head west, Rock County, Dane County, your cost for health insurance is simply less than it is here in Walworth County or Waukesha County. Doesn't always make a lot of sense, but and that's kind of the discussion we had.
We had several meetings with the heads of the Mercy system and the Aurora system, and I posed that question: how can you tell me that the New Glarus School District, which is an hour away, but you don't even have to go that far. Just go to Janesville, go to Milton, go to Edgerton, 30 miles away, and their annual health care costs or family plan is $6,000 to $8,000 less than ours, which is $4,000 to $5,000 less than Burlington and Lake Geneva's. I mean, so you're talking almost $10,000 less if you live 30 miles west of here. Wow. They didn't have a good explanation. They couldn't tell me. They said, well, don't you as best practice, go and find out? Well, gee, I wonder why the whole Madison sliver, central Wisconsin, can operate and still make money and provide services at a third of the cost.
So one of the districts we started to look at was Elmbrook. Because number one, they're in our area. They're actually farther east. It's basically the Brookfield area. So, and kind of, what did they do over time? And not necessarily we wanted to do everything they did. Their district is about double our size. But what can we learn from them? So there were a couple of points that came out of that we talked about, and it really had to do with the engagement piece. Not only the school district, but really having those discussions, as Jason mentioned, with the providers. And USI has coordinated several of those with Mercy, Aurora, not just Elkhorn School District, but school districts here in Walworth County, Rock County, Waukesha County. Find a little bit more. Number one, what are their costs? What are they seeing? What's the impact on COVID? But how is this affecting our budgets? And just kind of starting more of that dialogue and what things can we do to work together? So it's an ongoing process. Primary care is being probably the biggest piece to healthcare costs in terms of controlling those costs and making sure that all our employees do have a primary care physician. So those are kind of the things we talked about, looking at maybe one plan in the future, a strong pharmacy manager partner. I mean, those are some of the things that they did there. So those are some of the things we started to look at. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I just want to add two really basic principles that I think were really aha moments for me is something that they've set up in that partnership with Elmbrook is identifying who are the best providers, the very best. Because you might think, oh, gee, you're going to pay more to go to that high-quality provider. But going to that high-quality provider, if the issue is caught early, if it's resolved the first time, you don't have to go back and fix it. That saves hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases. Having that good primary care where it's accessible and people are going, if you can catch cancer in stage 1, not only is it a much more likelihood they're going to fully recover, there's also a much less economic impact on the health insurance plan. So it's not it's like, providing, like you were talking about before the board meeting, Paul, it's not that reactive, but that proactive care pays huge dividends from a cost standpoint.
One of the features they had, and it's something I think we're going to look at, is a company called NICE, and it's kind of the telehealth, the teledoctor service, but it goes beyond that because they also have a nurse that could actually do house visits. So it's kind of the whole concept of house calls with the physician, which could be used if it's a situation that can't get resolved through remote access, or you have young children and you really can't get out of the house. So that's a service piece we're kind of looking at too, that may be part of this. So that was our discussion. And then on December 9th, we set some goals. I'm sorry, I'm not being clear. Let's click on that December 9th link. And that, we kind of talked a little bit more of having that discussion with the providers as opposed to the health insurance or the middleman, so to speak, and how do we kind of move maybe that direction. Employee engagement. And so we asked them to really go out in the market and find out what are some of these other options we could look at, either self-insured or health insurance carriers. So they did all of that work in January and then came back here February, March, and met with our committee and shared kind of the results. So the result page then, if you close this, and I think, let's see here. Yeah, so here's what we got back. We are currently with WEA Insurance. So if we just simply renew with them, their quote was 17.5% for next year.
Increase?
Increase.
Oh
Yes.
My God.
That's on top of the 10% from last year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So they had a couple of other plans, narrow network, some other things, but still you're looking at double-digit increases. We've got some other quotes for Anthem, Quartz, Group Health Trust, who we've been with in the past, but they were just about 18% too. So the other thing we looked at then is between Mercy and Anthem, they have a couple of plans which are more narrow network. The Anthem one is more the Aurora network, and the Mercy is Mercy.
Right.
And we talked about the possibility of doing like a dual choice program, but people would have to choose one of those two. Now, ultimately, Anthem said, well, if you're going to do a Mercy option, we're not going to offer our plan. It's either our plan or no plan. So they really wouldn't do that route. Plus, it would have required our employees and their families to choose between one of those two carriers. The other insurance company that came in was Humana. And Humana we've been with back in 14-16 for 2 years. So, and we were very happy to see it, basically a proposal with no increase in premiums. And not only for 12 months, but up to 18 months. Because one of the things we were looking at doing is matching up our plan renewal with all the deductibles and everything that's based on a calendar year.
Yeah, right.
So they were able to kind of take the extra step and move us to an 18-month plan and continue at that 0% increase.
Wow.
Now Humana, now we know like Mercy is just Mercy and Anthem is the other. What is Humana? Is that like
it's a national company, so
Okay.
basically I think
when we found that it affected
go ahead, Paul.
Well, we have a lot of
staff
people who don't,
less.
right, who
They
don't
weren't
live-
going to lose their providers,
Right,
and that was
that's
one of
why
the
I
big
asked.
things too. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Very minimal effect on the
Right.
overall staff that we got.
Sure.
They figure like 99% of the covered
keep their people.
carriers and
Right.
refer
There
people.
might be the random chiropractor or
Correct.
mental health provider
Right.
that might not be in.
Right.
So I think as we started going through this process, it kind of made our decision recommendation fairly easy.
Yeah, no kidding.
But the other advantage with Humana is the information they provide allows us to possibly in the future look at another type of plan type. When I say another type, it might be a self-funded plan. The problem we had with getting quotes on that kind of coverage now is WA doesn't provide enough detail to really so that the carriers and the underwriters can really price it out appropriately. So there's a risk of doing that without having that information. They're likely to, quote it pretty conservatively without having that kind of detailed data. So with Humana, we'd have that kind of data. So it gives the district the option in the future to go down that path if we decide to do that.
That's important because we need to know, for example, if there's a knee replacement done at Aurora, or there's a knee replacement down at Mercy, what's the cost difference? Because if you're self-insured, you can incentivize employees to be steered into the more effective, more cost-effective solution. And in doing a lot of this work, we found there's examples across the country where one hospital, the cost might be $16,000 and the other one $88,000. And the insurance just pays it. So WHS wouldn't give us that information to let us know what they pay Mercy or what they pay Aurora for it. We'll have that now with Humana, which will help us be able to follow kind of that Elmbrook model where you're partnering with certain high quality institutions that are cost effective as well.
So I think, like I mentioned, it became a fairly easy recommendation for the committee for all kinds of reasons. I kind of talked about the next step then, pending a board action this evening, if the board approves that change, then it's the whole education kind of process would begin. And we would start that this week, quite honestly. We communication tools. But what's nice is we'd have, the end of March here, then we have spring break, but all of April, May could be the open enrollment, and then we still have June, and we should be able to get insurance cards and all of that in people's possession before we start a July renewal. We're not 100% sure, but our employees, unless they're going to be changing plan types, may not have to do anything. We could just take their data and get it to Humana, and they'd set up the actual new enrollment information, which would make it fairly seamless for our employees.
Bill mentioned the NICE option. USI was able to, NICE is the name of the company. You can go and look on their website about what they do, but they were able to negotiate with Humana a reduction in that 0% increase. So they'll reduce our rate to the level at which it would cost us to contract with NICE to provide that nurse practitioner for all our employees. And so the benefit is if they do their appointment through NICE, there's zero cost, zero out of pocket. It's covered at 100%. And then, so that's a big advantage. Also, when I look at it, like having a family of 5, if I have several people sick or, I can schedule the appointment. They'll actually come to the house, do the strep test right there. And they also have x-ray machines that are mobile and everything else. So it was a huge benefit. There would be no cost to us or our employees. That would be in addition to that. And, I was appreciative. So they're working on the details with NICE to see if we can get enough belly buttons or insurers, because we'd have to partner with the neighboring district. But USI thinks they have a neighboring district where we're pretty close to that number. Okay.
So they've really, I think, done just a fabulous job of negotiating with these carriers and coming up plan. I mean, obviously, to see that come in when I think early on in this process, I know at least I was just nervous about what our health insurance costs would look like. And not wanting to obviously do significant changes that negatively affect our employees. So long-term items, these are things we'll continue to work on. We have these monthly reports with USI in terms of how we're doing with the carrier, what our claims look like, kind of the on-site or near-site virtual clinic. That's kind of the NICE program, looking again at our wellness incentives, the primary care, possibly self-funded, other creative solutions. So even with this recommendation doesn't mean we're necessarily done. I think it's still continuing work and what other things can we do over time, because I think one of the goals I threw out there is, could we simply not pay any more for health insurance for the next 5 years? I think we're paying enough. Right. How do we make that happen without negatively affecting our employees? Now, maybe that's a tough goal to meet.
I was shocked they didn't bat an eye when we told them that we want 0 increase for 5 years. And
now I see here, we talked about having on-site 4, and we've never done that. I think, did we have some of the biometric screening we did?
Well, we do that every year. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but other than that, though, if you had a question that you don't have that.
Well, we have, even with WA, they had the telehealth
so they
component. Yes.
Okay.
I think what you might be referring to is kind of, an actual physician or nurse practitioner on site. Yeah,
right.
We've been talking about
that. They wouldn't
that.
have as far to go, but the telehealth, some of the things can be done.
I think some of the advantage to that is probably more advantageous when you go to a self-funded model, because then you could really see the savings, whereas with a regular healthcare, you won't necessarily see that. So, and we talked even to the county about partnering with them.
Right, but I thought at one point they said no.
The county?
Yeah,
they
been
were
a few years back.
Yeah, at one point we were kind of moving forward, and then they were looking at their entire program, just put everything on hold. And then they did visit us again, I think last spring, and we're kind of interested. But by then we were kind of starting this process, so we were kind of on hold. So we'll see what the future brings.
I think that's sort of the nice in regards to that on-site type option. Well, really, especially because the majority of our staff are on a high deductible plan now. So if my kid has a sore throat, why wouldn't I work with the nice nurse practitioner, have it looked at, and not have to pay my office visit of $250? If it's $0, I mean that's a no-brainer, and especially I think it's just remembering and helping educate people that is an option that may be a first step. On something, and they would always refer them if it's something more serious.
I don't know, Paul or Ed, is there anything else?
No, I thought it was a great process. I love the company we're working with, so great process. So. You make a motion?
I will make a motion. No other questions?
Okay, then I will move to approve the recommendation from the Employee Insurance Advisory Committee to switch the health insurance providers to Humana effective July 1st, 2021 as presented. Is there a second?
And then just to clarify, that's for 18 months, right?
And that is for 18 months. Yes.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation from the Employee Insurance Advisory Committee to switch health insurance providers to Humana effective July 1, 2021 for 18 months as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
It's kind of nice.
I have to abstain.
Oh, we got one abstain.
Thank you. 2021 summer school program.
Yeah, traditionally the school board approves a summer school kind of budget program for that coming that coming summer, which is 2021. Because part of the reason I think the school board takes action on this, it technically crosses 2 fiscal years. So when you approve the program, it's kind of part of next year's budget too. Pretty much what is on this page would represent kind of what we did in 2019. Because last year's summer school program was obviously different with the COVID kind of situation. But at the K level, they're looking at doing the 2 weeks June, 2 weeks July. Most of the program is at the middle school, getting ready for kindergartens at Jackson, and then the high school would run the kind of the high school program. So it certainly fits within our budget of what we traditionally kind of set aside. Last year, I think our FTE was quite a bit less than the 70 or 74 that we typically get, but our costs were lower too. So it kind of washed itself. I think the one area when I did talk with Mr. Frost that it's early in the process, but it's the staffing for summer school. And I think part of what we might be seeing is staff are kind of like they're looking for a break. And so for the first time, we actually advertised on weekend for summer school. So the staffing piece is kind of a work in progress. So.
I don't remember. I mean, I know we have a summer school coordinator, and we have that, and that's always an exercise. But I don't remember summer school supervision. We may have had it, but I just don't remember that. What is that position?
On-site, we have one for the younger level and one for the older level. So it's basically like an on-site principal.
Oh, okay.
Runs that. So Mr. Frost organizes, coordinates for the K-8. Mrs. Saunders handles or did it get shifted to Ms. Blair? One of the high school APs handles the high school coordination organization, but
it's Jamie.
It's Jamie, okay. Then when it comes to the actual, we want somebody at both those levels there as that point person every day. Yeah.
Bill,
Yeah.
this is Rita. I'm not trying to be picky, but is there a mistake in the right-hand total column for middle school total cost? And is that just a typo, or was it added wrong down at the bottom then too?
The total for the middle school level.
That would be up above a little bit.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
23 and
there
27
is.
doesn't come to 38.
No, that number isn't correct.
Must be some rounding.
Much more than rounding.
It's the new math.
I just didn't know if the total at the bottom came out. Then I'm not sitting here with a calculator or anything, but math is not my forte.
Go to Vegas, Rita. Get that card counting.
No, you're right, Rita.
So should we have the new numbers if we're going to approve it?
The total would be correct.
Oh, the total's correct, it's just that one.
That's not correct.
Okay.
Questions on the summer school budget? Who is the promotion for it?
I move to approve the 2021 summer school budget as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve this 2021 summer school budget as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Announcements.
Right, just a couple quick announcements. The election canvass will be held at the district office on Tuesday, April 13th, starting at 8:00 a.m. And they would also like to schedule a personnel committee meeting to review employee handbook revisions. Want to know if Monday, April 12th at 10 or 11 would work for those committee members, and that's Barb, Paul, and Julia.
It works for me.
Yep.
Sure.
Looks to me either way.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what time.
Let's do 11 o'clock then.
Okay.
Does that work?
And the canvas, that's me, just me.
It's Jenny.
Oh,
she's not up for elections.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as my name's on the ballot.
Oh, okay. That was a lot of fun.
You did it last year.
Yeah, go for it.
It is a public meeting, though. You can certainly.
I'll make sure I'm right there.
Well, it can be really involved when it's when there's competition.
Or is
Yeah.
it the Julie Castle?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else? Jason, or no?
That's it.
That's all you got? And a motion to adjourn somewhere?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Would you like some?